Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Well, hello. Thank you, America's Hero Group, for having me on today. I was told I can come on and share a little bit about myself. I am an Air Force veteran. I'm also a former journalist. I'm also an author. So this is actually my book called No Longer Silent. I'm also a member of the Pink Berets who help sexual assault survivors. And so I'm just really honored to be able to be on today to share a little bit about myself and hopefully gain some followers. If not, be able to assist. And I'll explain the different ways that I'll be able to assist in just a bit. So let me start off with a little bit of my background. As I mentioned before, I am an Air Force veteran. So I actually was living in Japan and going to school and interning as a news reporter at a local TV station. And I loved it so much that I said, I'm going to try to join the military and see if I can do this as a job for the military. Now, granted, everyone says, why didn't you join the Marine Corps? We're not going to go into that, but let's just say my dad was a Marine and that was good enough for me. So I said, let me check and see what other branches offer a broadcast journalism type career field. And I found out that the Air Force did. So I applied and I basically got the job, got sent to Lackland Air Force Base. Then I went to Fort Meade where I did my tech school at DINFOS, Defense Information School. And then I got sent right back to Japan, except this time I wasn't at Iwakuni, I was at Yokota. And absolutely love Yokota, love Japan in general, learned the language. During the time that I was there, I was a radio show host. So I had over 75,000 listeners on Eagle 810, and I was DJ Fructis. And during that time, I also anchored the evening newscast, which was the Pacific Report. When I wasn't doing those things, I was going to school full time, volunteering around the community, and I was doing a lot of like acting gigs. So I was in a couple movies there. I was in different magazines, and mostly what was most important to me was being involved in the community. So I got to host different events, come and be a panelist on different events for high school students, which is something I still continue to do now, help high school students. But I did that during my career in the Air Force, at least while I was in Japan. Once I was done in Japan, I got sent stateside. I finished up my active duty contract at Joint Base Andrews, during which time I got to see the Obamas all the time. I did the POTUS missions, so I got to escort the media off and on base so they can get footage of the Obamas taking off and landing. And during that time, I like to joke and tell people I carried DVDs in my car, like the old rappers. Back in the day, the old rappers would have cassette tapes in their trunks and they would hand them out to people, hoping that they would get their big gig from it. Well, that was me with demo reels on DVDs. So every time I escorted the media, I would give them my demo reel and my resume and say, hey, would you mentor me? I want to be a news correspondent. And so basically, because of that and all the networking I was doing, as soon as I got out of the military, I got hired at Network News. So I worked for the network a few months, and then I left and got my master's at Syracuse University in broadcast and digital journalism. As soon as I got my master's, they hired me right back. So I became a regional correspondent. I covered the Southeast region. So I covered the Carolinas, Georgia, Tennessee, pretty much any state that they needed me to go to in that area. That's where I got sent to cover different stories. So I covered, I was on the campaign trail covering political figures. I covered natural disasters. I covered military affairs. So it was a wide range of different things that I got to cover. I also got to cover a lot of court cases, Dylan Roof, Bo Bergdahl, Reality Winner. If you remember those two last cases, those were military involved cases. So I got to cover a lot of national court cases as well. And so basically after that, I went to local news in Florida. I did that for a bit, and then I came to DC and I became my company's first Pentagon correspondent. I did that for about 2 years. And then once my contract had ended there, I said, you know what, the pandemic has been insane. I need to take a step back and recalibrate what my priorities are. Because during that time, I'd lost a lot of loved ones. And that just made me realize how important family was. And so basically, since that time, I've been spending my time, you know, building my relationships with my family members, getting more involved in the community. So I mentor high school students 2 months out of the year. Every Saturday, I mentor them in journalism and how to be great, fair and balanced journalists once they get into college and beyond. I also work with TAPS. So I mentor 7 to 9-year-olds who've lost their loved ones either while deployed or to suicide. I also involved in the community as far as raising money for homeless veteran women and their children. I also feed the homeless sometimes as well. So that's been some of the great things that I've been able to do. But I think most importantly was being able to publish my book, which is called No Longer Silent. And it's actually my memoir of overcoming trauma as a child, as well as while I served in the military. So just to give you all a little brief synopsis of my book, basically it talks about childhood traumas as far as being assaulted. I was sexually assaulted as a child for 2 years. And I also dealt with gun violence. So I was shot, you know, different things of that nature. Once I grew up, I joined the military, and then I was assaulted in the military. And so my book basically goes into those traumas that I had experienced and how I was able to overcome those traumas and what I'm doing now to help others, which is the perfect peg into how I got involved with Pink Berets. So I was going and promoting my book and doing different book signing events, and I got involved with a few veteran organizations. And my whole thought process, or the whole point of me getting involved with them, is because I wanted to see what I could do to help other sexual assault survivors, not just adults, but also children. So my focus is service members, veterans, and children who have had to deal with sexual assault, domestic violence, or gun violence. And so when I was at one of the meetings, a woman had suggested to me, hey, you should reach out to the Pink Berets. I'd never heard of them before. So I said, okay, tell me a little bit about them. And she did. And so, of course, as soon as I get home, I'm like trying to Google them. And for whatever reason, I kept spelling beret wrong. So I never found them. So I'm like, okay, well, it wasn't meant to be. I want to say about a month later, I was on Instagram and I started seeing posts from the Pink Berets. And I'm like, okay, this is nothing but God. So I reached out. That's when I got to speak to Stephanie. And it's just been a beautiful relationship ever since then. So I'm so thankful to be able to be involved with them and help out in any way that I can. Most recently, I actually was able to attend a gala that they had in Bernie. Let me make sure I'm saying it right, Bernie, Texas. And that was to raise awareness about what their mission is, which is to help sexual assault survivors, active duty, and veterans. And I got to meet a lot of phenomenal people. And I emphasize people, not women, people, because there was also a lot of great gentlemen there too who believe the same things that we do. Like, sexual assault doesn't just happen to women. It happens to men as well. It happens to children. It happens to the elderly. And so it was just really beautiful to be able to be there and be around a bunch of people who were pouring love into me. And I got to pour a little bit of love into them. And we got to know each other, and that camaraderie. I think that was the biggest thing, the camaraderie that we all knew we served, and we all came together for another purpose now. This is our new mission, which is to help sexual assault survivors. So that's how I got involved in the Pink Berets. And if you guys haven't heard of them, you definitely should check them out. It's an amazing organization. Like I said, everyone that I've met has been absolutely phenomenal, very loving, very giving, and on point with what the mission is, which is to come up here to DC. I'm in DC, and make sure that we're holding political figures accountable for what's happening in the realm of sexual assault against service members, veterans, and for me, children as well. And so I'm just so honored to be able to be on here and share a little bit about that. If you all are interested in hearing more or purchasing my book or learning more about my experience, my website is www.Terace Garnier, my name, Terace Garnier, Garnier.com. And you can get a copy. I have hardback and paperback. And also, one of the things I like to brag about, people always ask me, why don't you sell it on Amazon? No knock on Amazon, but very bad experiences where customers were getting not quality type products. So at least with this book, I put in bookmarks, I put in little cards with affirmations in them, and I hand wrap each and every one of them. So it takes me about 15 minutes per book just to prepare it to ship out because of all the love and the stuff that I put in with it. So you're not just getting a book, you're getting some little, cards that'll give you affirmations you can use throughout the day, some advice on how to set boundaries, how to be at peace. And that's a lot of what my book focuses on too, is helping others overcome that trauma, letting them know they aren't alone, they don't have to suffer in silence, and also providing them information if others that they know of have gone through it, what they should do, what they shouldn't do. And so if you're interested, please definitely check out my website. You can also follow me on Instagram. My Instagram is at Miss, MISS _T _Garnier. And please, if you do add me on those platforms, feel free to reach out to me. I have people reaching out to me all the time to ask for advice. I have people who say, I have a niece that this happened to. What do I do? Or it happened to me and I want to start kind of diving into that childhood trauma so I can heal from it. So I always encourage people, please feel free to reach out to me. That's what I'm here for. I highly believe that God allowed a lot of the things that happened to me because he knew that I would overcome it, and he knew that I was going to use it to try to help other people. And what better person to help individuals that are going through that than someone who has gone through it and overcame it themselves. And so I just want to say thank you all for having me. Again, you can find me on Instagram at Miss _T _Garnier. My website's www.TeraceGarnier.com. And please also check out the Pink Berets because they're doing some phenomenal things to help other sexual assault survivors, which is why I'm so proud to be a part of their organization. So hopefully, if you guys have any questions, feel free to chime in or shoot me a message. And I look forward to hearing from you all.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and
All right, so we're back for round two. So thank you so much, America's Heroes Group, America's Heroes Group, for having me. A little earlier, I was explaining a little bit about myself and my experiences. And so I'm going to elaborate. I'm going to go a little bit more into my background, kind of my experiences during the military and some of my experiences once I got out. So as I mentioned earlier, I had started off as an intern at a local TV station in Iwakuni, Japan. So I was a civilian. And then I joined the military as a broadcast journalist, got to travel all over the world covering different stories, got out, became a news correspondent, where I also got to travel all around the world doing different stories. One of which I'm actually thinking of. It was a very interesting story, but basically, and I don't know if all y'all remember this, because right when it happened, the pandemic also happened as well, but the historic fires in Australia. I got the opportunity to go there and cover that for 2 weeks. So I basically flew to Sydney and traveled all the way up and down the coast, covering different stories about how those fires were impacting local wildlife, the general population, etc. And so that's just one example of a story I got to cover. Some other ones that I got to cover, actually, as a journalist, civilian journalist, I covered the drawdown, the Afghanistan drawdown. So I was a Pentagon correspondent, and I covered a lot of stories that came out of that. So I don't know if you all remember when there was a stabbing. They thought it was a shooting there. I think it was about 2 or 3 years ago. I was the first person on scene to cover that because all the other journalists were inside the Pentagon. I just happened to be pulling up when it happened. So I was literally the only journalist out there live talking about what was happening, what I was seeing and hearing. And so that's another example of being able to cover breaking news. And at this point, I wasn't in the military, so I'm covering the military, which was actually pretty interesting. But I've had a very interesting life. So before we even get into all that, what I did as a civilian, back when I was in the military, I was a broadcast journalist, and I was blessed to be able to be stationed overseas at Yokota, Japan. And so during that time, we had a radio show, which was Eagle 810. And we also had our TV section, which was the Pacific Report. But when I first got there, my aspirations were to do TV. And I remember when I first got there, they introduced me to everyone. And they said, congratulations, you're going to be doing radio. And I just remember going, oh, great. And then I remember going home and just crying all day because I was like, I did not want to do radio at all, like not even a little bit. So they ended up making me a radio show host. And only my close family and friends knew this. I absolutely hated it. I hated it so much because I used to joke during my show and say, I'm literally sitting in a padded room with no windows talking to myself for 4 hours. Like anybody would go crazy from that. And so I used to call it the insane asylum because I'm in this padded room talking to myself. But what I ended up doing, and this has always been my mindset, that whenever God gives me something, what am I to learn from this and how can I make the best of it? So during that time, I said, okay, I got to be a radio show host. I don't have a choice. So I can either be, mad about it and everything, or I can accept this and make the best of it. So what I ended up doing was I like to do different accents and different voices. And I was required to do 2 radio commercials a week. I ended up doing 10 a week. And I would bring in different people to act in them, and I would do different voices. So I would do my radio show and maybe do it in a British accent. And then, maybe the next day I might do it in a country accent. And then, every day I was switching it. So people thought it was really funny because they're like, we don't know who she's going to be today. And so I made it really fun. And I actually ended up winning a lot of awards for my radio show because I just started having fun with it. I'm like, look, it is what it is. Let's make the best of it. I'm going to love this. And so I did that for a while, and I negotiated with them because my show was so popular. I was DJ Fructis on Eagle 810, and I worked from, I think it was 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. And so I said, okay, look, guys, can we give me a little wiggle room? I'm like far exceeding your expectations when it comes to radio. So can I please do TV too? Because remember, I still want to be on TV. So they said, okay, fine. Yes, you can. You can anchor the evening newscast. Yes. So I was like, thank you, Jesus. And I was so excited. So basically I did radio in the mornings, and then I anchored the evening newscast. And then when I wasn't doing those things, I was out shooting different news stories. I shot a couple documentaries. And then I was also, as I mentioned previously, going to school full time and very, very involved in the community. And it was such a beautiful experience. My only negative about my experience in Japan, which if you get my book, you will find out more. I was assaulted. And at that time, I was involved in the SARC program. And the SARC program puts on different plays and different commercials, and they'll go to different bases and put on different events where they showcase to different service members what to do if you're assaulted, what you shouldn't say to people, what's acceptable, like catcalling is not acceptable, or saying, oh, you got a big old booty, that's not acceptable, right? So they would give different examples of things you should and should not do. And if those things do happen, these are the resources that are available to you. So I was very involved with the SARC program. And then unfortunately, I got assaulted. And I did not want to report it because I was very well known throughout all of Pacific Asia. So throughout Japan and Korea and some parts of Europe, people knew me because I was the radio show host. I was in tons of commercials. I was in a movie, Space Brothers. I was in all the magazines. And so for me, for something so traumatic to happen and then basically all of Asia to know about it, that just wasn't something I was all about. You know, I'm like, I want people to know me for my talent, not for something that happened to me. And so it took a chaplain speaking to me and saying, look, you know, it's really important because this could be happening to others, which I did end up finding out later on that this was happening to others. And so that's when after a week, I decided to come forward about it. And I'm not going to say it was an easy process. I did have several people from management or my higher ups that were supporting me, but it was almost, I did face retaliation from my coworkers. I think my list of friends shrank significantly, and I did feel alone a lot of that time. As a matter of fact, it got so bad, they moved me from my dorms into a hotel room, and I had armed security guards outside my room, and I couldn't leave unless they escorted me places, which was really, imagine a 22, 23-year-old, 24-year-old woman not being able to have their freedoms anymore and having to be escorted everywhere. Just wasn't my cup of tea. And so, you know, I tried to make the best of that situation. I reported him. I actually ended up having to leave Japan because he kept threatening me. And they sent me to Joint Base Andrews. And mind you, my unit had no idea I was even coming. I posted on Facebook, hey, I'm going to Joint Base Andrews. And they're like, no, you're not. I'm like, yeah, I am. I'm like, talk to my command. And then my command's like, yeah, she's going to be there tomorrow. So be there at the airport. Now imagine that. I was supposed to be there for another year. And so I ended up coming to Joint Base Andrews, and I started going to counseling, and I got involved where I got this idea. I said, look, I want to create this series where we showcase what's available to sexual assault survivors. And so I kept reaching out to the Pentagon. I'm like, look, we got to do these commercials. I'm telling you, it's going to work. And so they said, okay, great, let's do it. So what I ended up doing was interviewing 3 different survivors. One was a dependent who had been assaulted, and the other 2 were active duty service members. And I created these commercials where they were talking briefly about their experience and what is available to them, to anyone that goes through that kind of trauma. And so as a result, they sent me to the JAG school in Alabama, and I was able to talk to a lot of the attorneys there about the good things that I experienced and things that they can improve on. And then after that, the Pentagon invited me there, and they coined me. So I got coined by a couple generals regarding the different series that I put out to try to help sexual assault survivors. So that was my mission. My last year of my military career, my mission was to help sexual assault survivors. Now, transitioning out of the military into the news sector. Of course, that's still in the back of my mind. I want to raise awareness about that. So I tried to cover a lot of different stories where I was talking about this issue that I do feel is swept under the rug, and it's still being swept under the rug. So I got to cover a lot of different stories, but it wasn't until I had to cover the story of Vanessa Guillen, who was the Fort Hood soldier who was sexually assaulted and then murdered by her coworker, that I realized that it was very important for me to write this book and start raising awareness, especially for us Black and brown women, and not just Black and brown women, Black and brown men as well, because I believe it was Felice Fernando. I believe he was also there at Fort Hood, and they said he died under mysterious circumstances, that he had committed suicide, but he had also reported that he was being sexually assaulted. And so that's when I made it my new mission that I have to speak out against these things, because far too often Black and brown individuals and their concerns are being ignored, and it shouldn't be, and especially when it comes to sexual assault. And so with my book, I definitely focus in on the fact that men and women are being assaulted. I actually have more men that purchase my book than I do women, which is very surprising, but I'm thankful because, like I stated earlier, this happens to men just as much as women. And I feel for men, it's a lot harder for them to try to come forward to seek help because there's a lot more shame built in. They may feel that whatever happened to them took their manhood, or, you know, they're ashamed of it. And so thankfully, I've had a lot of gentlemen reach out to me and share their stories with me and say that this was healing for them. Or I've had other men who've never had that happen to them, but they have children. And they're like, thank you so much for this advice, because I never would have thought I need to protect my 5-year-old son from a family member. And I'm like, yes, you do. And so that's been my main mission for the last couple years. While I've been spending time with family and volunteering with different organizations, my main focus is to raise awareness about this issue and just let people know that you are not alone. This isn't something you caused. This isn't your fault. And you don't need to suffer in silence. And there's a lot of resources available to you, and you can heal from it. And I know at the time when it happened, I thought I was going to die. I really did. I did not think mentally I would be able to handle it, especially when I had to face him in court. But it was so liberating being able to do that and face the man who assaulted me. And yes, he got kicked out of the military. Unfortunately, he didn't have to register as a sex offender, but it is what it is. All that being said, I want to thank America's Heroes Group for having me and letting me share my story. Again, if you guys are interested in getting my book, please head over to www.teresegarnier.com, or you can follow me on Instagram. My handle is @Miss_T, just the letter T, _Garnier. And please feel free, if you have any questions or you have your own experiences you want to share, it's a safe space. Anything you tell me won't go anywhere else. And I just want to be that person that if you need someone to vent to or you need some advice, I can share with you my experience. Now, granted, I'm not a doctor or a counselor, and I will always say go to counseling. But if you want someone that you just need someone to listen to you, that won't judge you, I'm here for you. So again, thank you to America's Heroes Group for having me. Check out my websites and also check out the Pink Berets as well, because they do this as well. And they have a lot more resources to help get you out of the house and get you doing different events where you can build camaraderie and help you overcome those traumas. So I want to thank you all, and I hope everyone has a great week.
Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market, advertise. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Hello, friends. This is Jim Chancellor with the American Veterans Collection. I'm the president and CEO of the American Veterans Collection, which is a not-for-profit that was born in 2010, November 14th of 2010, I believe it was. The American Veterans Collection does a lot of work with veterans that are struggling. Our main mission is to help people with housing and employment and any type of help they might need to right this ship, so to speak. I'm involved in the Veterans Treatment Court in Lake County, Indiana, where we help our veterans through some legal issues. And I'm really happy to be here with you again. I'd really be remiss if I didn't talk about the date, 9/11. September 11th is the day that will live in infamy for the attack on our Twin Towers. On that date, 2,977 people lost their lives, and countless have died since then from that terrible the incident. Unfortunately, some was by suicide. Now, the people that were there that day, boots on the ground, let's talk about the first responders, the firemen and the police people that were there, and they ran to the disaster. They didn't run away from it, they ran to it. And I've often wondered about their courage and if they realized what they were doing when they ran towards the towers. In 2023, there were 42 mass shootings in the United States, whether they be terrorist or just mass shootings. 217 people were killed. Let me read you a partial list. Winder, Georgia; Forest Park, Illinois; Dalton, Georgia; Plant City, Florida; New York City; Birmingham, Alabama; Florence, Kentucky; Hudson, Florida; Marion, Iowa; Charlotte, North Carolina, and the list goes on and on. We've lost 527 people so far in 2024. This terrorism and the violence by our children must stop. I remember growing up with my father and listening to him, and Dad taught me not only from my own life, but from his life, his experiences. I leaned on some of his experiences. He was taught right from wrong, and he passed that on to me. And so I grew up with both his experiences and my life experiences, which shaped me. And I often wonder why our veterans couldn't do the same thing, why our veterans couldn't lead by example. Our children, our youth, they don't have to do the mass killings because unfortunately, as combat veterans, we have done that. They don't have to kill the innocent people. They don't have to do collateral damage because, again, unfortunately, we have done that. You need not fill your life with hatred and violence. You need not take the lives of our children and emotionally cripple the families of them, because we have done that. This is not the first time that this is not a brand new idea. This has been brought back a long time ago. There was a man that came before us. His name was Jesus, and he gave his life so that we would be free. Why can't our veterans do the same thing? Why can't we lead by example the same way? Instead, our youth sometimes rule the world, so to speak. And if you think that's not the truth, go to the mall and watch our seniors as they put their head down and won't even look at our youth because they're afraid of them. Talk to our teachers They will tell you the same thing, that there are students that they can't deal with. They're just afraid of. The drugs and the gangs in the streets have turned our youth into predators, and we all seem to be very much afraid of them. But we can reach them, and we can teach them if they'll listen. But we can't only preach to them. We must be teacher and student. We must talk to them as we listen to them. We must educate them as they educate us. We can't simply tell them what we've done in the past. We can't pound the podium and say, we've done this and we've done that, because they don't care about that. They want to know what's for them and which way are we going to go forward. So if I could leave you with a short lesson, it would be to let them follow you. Let them follow you down the path that we belong on, that America belongs on, that we're not afraid of our youth. And we're not afraid of, we need to eliminate the terrorism and the bombings and the school shootings. And if our veterans can lead by example, our wartime veterans, we know what collateral damage is. There is no difference between a mass shooting on the street and a firefight in the jungle. There's collateral damage, and we've already done that. So our youth really don't have to. But I'm going to jump around a little bit with you. I mean, that's how I feel about our youth, and I think that we can turn the corner. I think that if we lead by example, and they do choose to follow us, then we can make a difference. Last week I talked about PTSD, and I talked about post-traumatic stress and the moral injuries. The moral injuries of war being those injuries to the soul, and PTSD is fear-based. And I'm a solution-based type of guy. I really don't like to point out problems without saying, okay, here's how we could fix this. And so I'm gonna go down that road a little bit, because on the way home last month, I thought to myself, well, you didn't give them any options. So I believe in symbolic gestures. I believe that there's things that we can do with our veterans that are still in the military. We can talk to them all we want to. We can put them in a room and say, if you're having some mental issues, just raise your hand. And no one will do that. That I experienced that coming home from Vietnam. No one wants to be red flagged. No one wants to be labeled as someone who might have mental issues. But if you educate the entire group, if 300 people come home together and you educate all of them where they don't have to raise their hand, because as soon as they raise their hand, that's where the label comes from. But if you educate all of them together, and then you put that education in their soul, then maybe the first time they get a DUI, or maybe the first time they push their wife up against the wall, or their son, that they'll realize that'll be in their subconscious, and they'll realize that maybe that war still got a hold of them. So that's what I think needs to be done. And I'm going to start a mission next week on doing that, working with Congressman Frank Mervan and some of the National Guard units. I'm going to put them together, and I'm going to make them sign a contract. I'm going to bring in I'm going to offer them hope as far as housing and education, VA benefits, and everything they might need to straighten up their lives. But then I'm going to do a PTSD presentation, and I'm going to bring in other agencies that work with the homeless, work with the veterans. And then the following morning, I'm going to have them write an impact statement. And I'm going to have them write that impact statement, pledging themselves to the other 299 people that are there. And I think that when I talked a few minutes ago about a symbolic statement, that signature to those people, I think, carries a great deal of weight. And here's why I believe that. My daughter struggled with drugs and alcohol and she battled it for about 4 years, and then with the help of the Lord, she's back into society and got a wonderful family. But when she was struggling with the drugs and the alcohol, I would try to talk to her, and she would be right up in my face, and she would curse me and yell at me, and I would try to explain to her the right and the wrong and the way things should happen in her world. Her choices were not good, and I didn't think she heard not one word. I thought she just had a blank. She had the door shut. She was fighting with drugs and alcohol, and she had the door shut, and she didn't hear anything. But then, fast forward 10, 12 years, and I hear her talking to her son, Austin, my grandson, and she's saying the exact same thing that I told her. She's almost quoting me. So I know she heard me. So you give me those 300 people for 2 days, and they'll hear me, and they'll have that education to change their lives. Another example of that symbolic gesture that I talk about is when I was a young man, I started a construction company. And I went to my dad. I was so excited. I went to my dad, and he said, "That's great, Jim." He goes, "What are you going to call it?" I said, "Well, I'm going to call it Timberwick Builders." He said, "Timberwick, that's kind of like a tree. You say timber and it falls down and you cut it up. It's like a wick, right?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That's pretty catchy." He said, "Are you going to be proud of your work?" Well, I said, "Of course." He said, "Then you name it Chancellor Builders." He said, "You put your name on the side of that truck." And he said, "And remember this, when you stick your hand out and you shake somebody's hand and you make a deal, you're not giving them your word, you're giving them my word." So that always meant something to me, that when I shook someone's hand and we struck a chord or an agreement, that was binding to me. That was more binding than any kind of written contract, was my word. If you really want to hurt me, if you really want to hurt me, all you have to do is give me something to do. I'll try my best, and it doesn't work out, and then you come to me and say, "Jim, I'm really disappointed in you." That would cut to the quick. Now, I want to share a conversation I had with a young man. He just got out of the military, and he was just so bubbly, happy about things. And he was never deployed. He spent his time here in the States. And so when I was talking to him, I asked him, I said, "Jason, why are you so upbeat about the military? You weren't deployed, you weren't in combat, and a lot of people want to go to combat." And he said, "No, Mr. Chancellor," he goes, "I just had a blast." And I said, "Well, tell me about it." And he said, in basic training, he said it wasn't that hard for him. He said he was in pretty good physical shape, and he said, but the guy next to him, his name was Brimer, and he was overweight, and the drill sergeant came up to him and put his face right in, the drill sergeant put his face right in Brimer's face and said, "How much do you weigh?" And Brimer goes, "I weigh about 240, drill sergeant." He said, "Yeah, well, when I'm done with you, you're going to weigh about 140. He said, "I want you to run around this company saying, 'Rub, dub, clank, clank, I'm a big old baby tank.'" And away he went. And this young guy just started laughing, just telling me the story. And then towards the end of basic training, they were talking about where you're going to go for your advanced individual training. So 11 Bravo was the infantry. So you didn't want to hear that, 11 Bravo. And they were calling off names, and they were saying 11 Bravo, 11 Bravo, Manny, 11 Bravo, Chancellor, 11 Bravo. And then they called his name and said 67 and 20. And he said, "I jumped up and I was so excited." And he said, the drill sergeant said, "Sit down, young man. That's a door gunner on a helicopter." And so, he just enjoyed it. He enjoyed serving his country. And he wanted everyone, and he wanted to tell me that story. Now, there's some bad stories out there as well. There's stories from Vietnam, and there's stories from Afghanistan and Kuwait that I could share with you. But one I really want to share with you is I interviewed a man from Munster, and he had the numbers on his arm. So he had been in camp. And for the life of me, immediately after that, I could not remember what we talked about. All I could remember was the markings on his arms. And he was as proud as anybody I'd ever met. But the impact of the markings on his arms have stayed with me ever since then. My brother Bill, one time, he called and asked me if I had seen Saving Private Ryan. And I said, no, Bill, I really haven't. He goes, well, are you avoiding it, Jim? And I said, no, not really. He said, I know what you do, and I think maybe you should see this. I know you work with people with PTSD. He said, and I think maybe you should see this. And I said, okay, I'll watch it. And for whatever reason, I didn't. I just put it off to the side. I never went and rented the movie. Well, the next time he called me and asked me if I had watched it, and I said no again, and he sent me a special edition copy of it. And so one Saturday morning, I plugged it in and I watched the first 30 minutes of it, and it was just unbelievable. It was unbelievable. And I thought to myself, I hope this is Hollywood. I hope this isn't a true statement. I hope this isn't the way it really was. So I shut my VCR off and I went to the VFW and I found some people that were there, and they said, no. He said that first 30 minutes that's exactly the way it was. The rear gate would go down and the first 5 or 6 rows would be killed immediately, and everyone else was trying to survive. They were trying to use their friends as human shields to get to the beach. They were in water over their head with a 60-pound pack on their back. And so that enlightened me about the difference between my war and the World War II wars, or even Afghanistan and Iraq. I can't imagine being in either one of those wars either. So the American Veterans Collection also works with needy families during the Thanksgiving and Christmas season. So I'm proud to say that we work with, our goal is 50 families, but we fell short last year and we only serviced, I think, 42 families. And what we do is we work with the different agencies in the area who might have names and phone numbers of veterans and veteran families that might be struggling. And then we contact them and we work with Strack Van Til's, and we pay them. I think Lisa charged $100 last year, and she probably donated another $200 worth of food. So these veterans for Thanksgiving had, food for a week before and the Thanksgiving meal and probably a week after. And then when we got there, when we delivered the baskets, we gathered the genders and the sizes of everyone in the family. And then we asked for a need list and a want list. So if there's a little girl on that list, then we take some food to the family, and there's a small child on that list that needs boots and coats and things for winter, we certainly would get that. But we'll also get that Barbie doll as well. And then we work with a pastor in Highland, Indiana, and we utilize one of his outbuildings, and we have a great big oversized Christmas chair, and we bring a Santa Claus in, and he works with the kids as they come in. The Munster Junior Women's from Munster, Indiana, does all the shopping for us. Shout out to Diane Kowalski for that. I don't know how we could do it without her. So let me talk a minute about the Veterans Treatment Court. I call it an opportunity court because there's more opportunity for people in the court than out of the court. I believe this. If there's a guy out there busting his butt, working 40 hours a week, not able to get sick, not able to break his arm, not able to do anything other than go to work back and forth, he doesn't know the opportunities that's available to him. If he's in the court system, whether it be lucky or unlucky, with a DUI or another charge, the court system, Judge Cantrell offers them everything from housing. If they're on the street, we can house people. If they want to complete their education, we can offer them an educational opportunity. We food and clothing, transportation, just about everything that they might need to rectify the problems in their lives, to stand up tall again. But they have to want to do this. We have every opportunity. But the young man that doesn't know of these opportunities, they can't use them. The kids that are in the program, they're the ones that have to use the program. Now, in the past, I've worked with, he was at the North Township trustee, Frank Mervan. He's now Congressman Mervan. But we worked on a homeless program, and it's still in place. What we try to do is we try to bring our homeless veterans in. They're probably the toughest nut I've ever tried to crack. They don't trust anybody. They're on the streets, and a lot of times they don't want help. But the program that Congressman Mervan and I put together was we try to find someone that is struggling, and we take them, we put them in a home or a transitional house, and we give them everything they need. We supply food for them. We give them about 72 hours to detox. So they need to know that we care about them, or else it'll never work. If they know we care about them, then they'll work with us. So we let them sit for about 72 hours, and then we start to do some detox on them, we do some intake on them. I'll sit and talk to them and ask them, what direction they want to go and how we can help with VA claims. And then I'll say, be ready to go to work tomorrow morning, and, we'll pick you up about 7:00. And he says, well, I can't go to work. I don't have a job. And my response is, oh, yeah, you do. We have day employers, and we're going to work. You're going to work day employers. And their next response is, I don't have a car. And we have dial-a-ride buses that pick them up and take them. And working with many employment specialists, and they all agree that employment is so good for the psyche. It gives you responsibility. It makes you feel good about taking care of yourself and your family. So if they want to change their lives, we can help them change their lives, whether it be through, the second time I talk to them or the third time I talk to them, I'll ask them what direction they want to go. Do you want to go back to school? Or we have a great relationship with Ivy Tech that has a 24-month fast-track degree for a nurse's aide, I believe it's called, or a nurse's assistant. So if they want to go to college, we can do that. They can use their GI Bill to help pay room and board and books and things like that. If it's someone like myself who wasn't really college material, I went right into the construction trade, and we have relationships with them as well. They have apprenticeship programs for, the IBEW, the electricians and the iron workers. They all have programs for veterans. And then while we're in that process of ironing out taking all the knots out of those ropes, I found out that they need to have a clean record. They can't have any baggage. So I went right to the superintendent I was talking to, and I said, well, what is this? I mean, if he's squeaky clean, he doesn't need any help. But if he needs help, then we got to be able to help him. And he said, well, Jim, the two things that most people fail are the drug test and the math test. And I said, well, if it's that hard, then how do you expect people to get over the hurdle? He said, we offer classes on how to pass the math test. He said, if they want to make a difference in their lives, we can help them. They still have to pass the drug test. So we've placed people in employment. We've worked with them as far as housing. We've done what we can. Now it's up to them to reach back out to us. Well, thank you very much for your time tonight, and hopefully maybe we'll see you next month. Thank you.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618.
I'm Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and what's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
guys, welcome to Prime IV Hydrate Wellness Center. I am Glenda Smith, executive producer of America's Heroes Group, and I am on site in regards to a company that I feel very fondly about, highly respect, and I'm a client. But first of all, I would like to start this day off, September 11th, in a moment of silence in remembrance of 9/11, the people that died, and of course the first responders who participated. I would also like to recognize Korean U.S. Army veteran James Earl Jones, who passed this week as well. So let's get started. I am so much into my wellness. Holistically, when I say holistic, that means like vitamins and your foods and making sure that you're hydrating yourself properly. So last year, I fell into an unhappy place. I lost my dad. A lot of things happened unexpectedly, and so I went into a very stressful state of being. I stopped taking my vitamins. I was just stressed beyond who I normally was. So I could tell I had become unbalanced and unhealthy because my hair was breaking and falling out. My skin, stress was wearing me. I was no longer taking my vitamins like I used to, regiment. I wasn't drinking water. I was living off of Starbucks coffee and caffeine, Coca-Cola like crazy. Oh yeah. Wasn't doing anything that was health beneficial. So I stumbled upon a company in Chicago that did IV treatments, holistic IV treatments, but I looked outside the window and did not go in because me being a germaphobic, the atmosphere and ambiance didn't really have that look that was appealing. And so I just peeped in and kept walking. But so subliminally, that was stuck in my mind like, holistic. Oh, hydrate. IV. Okay. So one day, maybe like 2 months ago, as I was going through, noticing that I am totally unbalanced and not in a healthy place. Looking at social media, Prime IV, Hydrate and Wellness popped up. So I clicked on it and started reading. I'm like, oh, this is something similar to what I saw in Chicago. So down here in Kentucky with my mom, visiting and doing whatever, I popped over and I came in, and at the desk, some of the most beautiful, the spirit, it was just, and it's so clean, it's the aesthetic, the ambiance, it's just so here. I came in and they gave me a walkthrough. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this. Now I am super scared of any type of needles, period. But I said, I'm gonna be open-minded and try this out. So come with me, I just wanna show you the experience. So when I came in and got my nerves together, look how clean, look how organized, how professional it is. You go and sit here, they start the IV here. They put the thing in, and then you go back to your chair. I'm gonna go back to the chair. And they put you in this reclining mechanical chair that massage you from your head down to your feet. This is the IV where they put your IV drip in. And so based on your treatment, you sit here, and this chair allows you to relax. It allows you to release while vitamins are going into your vein. And so let me get to that part, and then I'm going to turn it over to the professionals who can tell you why this matters. So that first day when I came in and got my treatment, Heather, Desmond, Shelby, the crew, it was like family up in here. I was so relaxed. I felt so welcome. I felt more than just like a client. I felt like, okay, I belong here to feel happy, to get healthy, So as I was sitting here and they put the herbal mask across your face and all that, and you lay back in the chair and you just in this massaging you from your neck, and I started to relax and I cried just a little bit quietly, because I had not felt that type of release, that type of relaxation in such a long time. So when I tell you your health matters, when I tell you your mental health, your body, all that is synced as one, it matters. It matters how you take care of yourself. So let's go back to the front, and I'm going to show you what I get once a month intravenously into my vein. And the stick, they are so good here. It's just a little prick. It's no ouch, ouch. It's just a little stick. So I get the boost immunity. I get the detoxifying body. I get the immuno acids. Yeah. So I get all that plus biotin, because my hair was falling out. My stylist was like, Glenda, what's wrong? So yeah. So I can tell you honestly, my hair has stopped falling out. It has grown back, because not only am I stressed, but I'm dealing with menopause. So that's a combination of a lot of things that can easily get you unbalanced with hormones and everything else. So what I get, I detoxify my liver. The liver cleanses your body, your blood, your urine, and that's a very important organ. I do the biotin for hair, skin, and nails. I do the immune boost to keep myself built up and strong. I do it all once a month, and I can tell you, I'm back and I'm balanced. I'm back into my happy place, but my body is no longer living off of caffeine and drawing all the negativities of me pushing through, trying to find that energy. So I am happily turning this over now to Heather Waters. She's one of the owners with her husband, Desmond. They are professional in what they do. I mean, like T's and I's. You go through when you come in, you come through your onboarding of getting your questionnaires and all this. You talk to their physician who clears out everything for you to start your treatment, and then they take it from there. So it is my pleasure to introduce Miss Heather Waters. So many degrees, I can't name them, but she's the owner.
Hi, thank you.
You're welcome, Heather.
Thank you. Welcome virtually to our spa here in Kentucky. We have many great members and clients, and one of them happens to be Glenda.
Yes.
I think it's a learning curve for us here in Florence or in Kentucky. Maybe out west or in the south, people are more familiar with infusion spas, but here we're not as a lot of our community doesn't know that this is really for them. They feel like their medical doctor, their regular doctor has to actually initiate something like this for them. And I'm here to tell you that this is your own self-care decision. We do not take insurance. We take HSA and FSA, and we treat people so that they can balance their work life, stress, all by themselves, and we help you through that journey. We have so many different choices of products and services. Obviously, our vitamins, minerals, electrolytes are in there. We have antioxidants like vitamin C and glutathione that people use. We have amino acids. All of these vitamins and nutrients are so important in our daily life, because our food quality over the last couple generations has just been diminished, really. The food that we prefer has to be visually satisfying to people, but the quality of nutrients in that food that we pick is low quality. And so getting that, all of these nutrients in food is just not a possibility anymore. We can get this through nutrients or supplements, but that means that's a daily commitment for most people, and we don't usually have that compliance, most of us. The other big piece of this is rehydration. A lot of people suffer from not getting enough regular water intake, and we as healthcare professionals, if you've seen us in the hospital, we keep saying, okay, if you come into us, I need you to drink a lot of water. I need you to stop smoking, stop drinking, basically don't have fun, de-stress. But we don't really give you a good roadmap to do that. And I'm telling you, this is one area that we can do that directly. Most people don't have water as their first preference of choice for drinking, for a beverage. In the morning, you feel like you need something to get you going with the day, so we picked caffeine. Coffee is a dehydrant, even though it is an energizer. If you don't do coffee, then you'll do tea, or you'll do something that has sugar and some kind of caffeine. And that's just that's our westernized kind of model, I think. And then we get busy with our day, and it does not allow us to stop and drink, or we're not allowed to have the water right next to where we're working. And so it could be 4 hours, it could be 8 hours, and by the end of the day, we're hitting our afternoon drop in blood sugar, and so we pick something else to keep us hydrated and energized for the rest of the day. And we're doing that consistently until we get home. And then a lot of people don't like to drink water too close to bed, because then you have to get up in the middle of the night, and nobody wants to not be able to sleep. And so it's a nice cycle that we keep doing. But here, I can guarantee a liter of fluid into a vein, and that equals 2.5 gallons of water for somebody. That is a game changer for most people who sit at a dehydrated state most of their life, adult life. And a liter and a half can actually turn somebody completely around, which is kind of exciting because we have a lot of success stories with that. Our clients can be young athletes, they can be adult athletes, they can be young adults with lots of kids, they can be active competing adults, they can be people who work over 40 hours a week. There's construction workers that are just exhausted because they're in high heat, high humidity situations. I mean, and there's even older, like senior citizens, assisted living places that they cannot get their water intake in. And heat, whether it be heat, humidity, or just circumstance, they're just not able to drink. But everybody can be positively affected and get a positive response from this treatment. We also offer NAD, which is great for addiction recovery, post-concussions, brain fog, hand tremors, Parkinson's. We use that therapy for a lot of recovery. And we have injections. B12 injections are great for energy. We have vitamin D because everybody seems to be deficient in vitamin D. And really that's something that regular providers need to be checking more frequently to make sure that our levels are in check. But we offer a ton of stuff, peptides as well, and soon to be hormone therapy for people who are suffering from menopause or from low hormone levels, male and female alike. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can talk about.
It's a ton of things, but I can, excuse me for stepping in front of you, but I can basically be a testimony to the fact that I have noticed in menopause myself how I have become more restful at nighttime. I don't feel the level of stress that I was experiencing maybe 3 months before I started, because this is what, my 4th or 5th treatment?
Probably.
Yeah. So it gives it at least a month, because vitamins that you take in your mouth, basically 80% comes out. It doesn't really stick like it's supposed to. But something that goes in your vein, I was a pre-med student, so I basically know what goes in your vein stays in your body, a majority of it, before it is rinsed through your system. So the things on this list, especially immunity, boosting immunity. Okay, flu season, you're ready to start, Elder. Yeah. So colds, COVID, that stuff has become annual.
Just part of the
Recurrence.
mashup.
Yeah.
Mashup of viruses that we're going to be getting. RSV has kind of taken over. It used to be kind of more, you could hear more about it with young kids, but now we're seeing that older generation having RSV complications and symptoms. So And COVID, yeah, it's going to be part of our annual run.
Just like flu. So if you boost your immunity system up, that's a great combative against that. It builds it up strong enough to the point, not saying it's 100, but it's a strong deterrent against you getting sick so easily. Because if your body is tired, your immune system becomes depressed and you're susceptible to almost anything. So I just want to just clearly share with what I have experienced that works. You all of 8 years have never seen me endorse anything or anybody, because that's not what I do. That's not what America's Hero Group does. But I'm personally giving a testimony based on my own experience on America's Heroes Group, because I know it works. And it's for the community overall, and it can make a difference in your health in terms of the depletion and the health essentials that you need to revitalize yourself, rejuvenate yourself. It works. It truly does. So, Heather, what else do we need to know about this fabulous place?
I think that you've done a good coverage on it. I think the other thing that you touched upon in the back is that there is that hidden gem of the nap pod or the massage chair, and having yourself giving yourself permission to not be focused on an IV and the nutrients, but actually enjoy a massage for the hour. It makes your body kind of shut off. A lot of people end up taking a nice little nap back there. We put you in an eye mask, we put a blanket on, you have a pillow, and you close your eyes, get the massage, and before you know it, you have your vitamins and you have your water. And it's an hour and 15 minutes, and then you're out and you can go back to your life. But for the hour and 15 minutes.
And I have to wait once a month. You can only wait once a month because the treatment is so concentrated to you once a month, but it's addictive. I can tell when it's time because I'll feel that the edge of the anxiety, something that's creeping up on me just a little bit. And so then I get in here and get back there and get in the chair and get my holistic on, and when I come out, I'm a new person for 29 more days. Yeah. I have to have it now once a month. I treat myself holistically, and I prefer Shelby, who's holding the camera.
And we got you, Shelby.
Yes, please. How do we do that?
Yeah, we'll swap.
Okay, so Shelby, come over. Yes, for the
Hi.
most part,
She's
this
our
is
lead.
Shelby, RN, one of the RNs here, who gets the IV, but she's the best to me. But all of them are really, really good. I just have a fave. Yeah, so just if you're in the Florence area, come in. If you live down here, come in and try it. Give yourself that treat. If you're not close to an area where they are, look it up. It's worth it because it's all about getting yourself mind, body, and soul balanced. Balanced. That's what it's all about. The nutrition, the health of being balanced. Naturally, you keep your body built up, you'll live a decent, healthy life for the most part. But when we start allowing life to live us and not us living life, you get in trouble. And I was in trouble last year. I was stressed to the max. I was just emotionally, physically, I was in a very unhealthy, balanced place. And your body will let you know it. Your body will send you signals. Hey, red flag, something is going on here. So.
And Shelby's been doing her drips too.
Oh, well, tell them about it, Shelby.
So I started here about September. I started getting my IV drips around February. I get them pretty consistently now. I will say it's definitely made a difference. I'm only 24, so I'm young, but energy-wise, I feel pretty good. I'm not as stressed. I don't do a good job drinking water because, like Heather said, I mean, it's here and it's next to me, but I just kind of don't have that habit to let me pick it up and drink. So it's nice to kind of get it through the IV. It's going straight there. Like she said, it's equal to 2.5 gallons of water that you're intaking. So I mean, I customize it based on what my goals are, which is pretty nice. So I don't have many things besides being hydrated, being energized, not feeling stressed. So it's nice that you can come in and we do have a menu, but we can kind of create something based on your health and wellness goals. I feel like that's a big thing for clients is having not only medical professionals treat them, but coming in and realizing, hey, I have a few staff members or nurses or pharmacists that are actually caring about how my health is and what I can do to better that. So, yeah.
Great. I did not show them the cryotherapy.
Yeah.
If you wanted to just kind of pop in there,
Please.
can we do that?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Just real quick.
Happy place.
This is our injection in cryo.
We have a few things. So cryotherapy has a very good benefits. Again, like we said, athletes, people with chronic pain, inflammation, tears of like hips or any other joint pain, things like that. So it gets to a negative degrees, and it really helps with lactic acid buildup. Not only that, but it gets so cold that it really just aids it directing towards that pain and inflammation. And not only that, but I feel like people doing it consistently, again, just like doing IV drips consistently, that's where it truly makes a difference. I mean, health is expensive, and if you really want to kind of aid at preventative things, I think IV hydration is something that many people should look into. It's vitamins, it's the NAD therapy, the peptides for weight loss, the cryotherapy for continuous pain, I mean, just muscle recovery in general. So people want to invest in their health, and it's something that's on to come up, especially on the eastern side. So I think it's definitely something that people should look into.
Great. And then I should probably point out that we do most all primes will have the compounding room that kind of stands apart from most other places.
Yeah.
Here's our pharmacist, Desmond.
Yeah, Desmond.
But he mans a pretty tight ship here. And we do all of our mixing on the spot, and it's in a laminar flow hood. So, do you have any lasting thoughts or comments?
Doing a great job. Love it here. I think it's a wonderful service, and I love being part of Prime IV for sure. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And then the other component that's that we find is some people don't always like the massage chairs. So we do offer another type of chair. It's a standard recliner that will kick their feet up if they need it. And then there are most all primes will also have a private room. And this is for migraine headaches. It's for ours is kind of shut down for the day, but it has a chair of choice. It has a syringe or the syringe pump or the pump, and then it'll have a TV in there. But this is for NAD therapy or Shelby.
Just any family and friends, whoever you bring. I feel like that's a big thing when you kind of dedicate to bettering your health and bringing your family members or friends. It just kind of aids at people. Hey, I want to help other people. Not only that, but I don't have childcare. So what do you do at that point? Is we do welcome kids and family members. So yeah,
all inclusive.
Yeah, nobody's left behind.
Yeah. All right, Miss Glenda, I'm coming back to find you.
Oh, well. Sitting here relaxing, enjoying being here because I understand how this place, Prime IV, hydration and wellness, has really helped me to get rebalanced physically, rebalanced mentally, rebalanced and have helped my body alleviate and reduce a lot of stressful anxiety that I was experiencing for the last past, I think 9, maybe I would say 10 months. So stress is very unhealthy. It's very detrimental to your health because you can't see the effects of it sometime until it's too late. And once it's too late, it's too late. So when you start getting warning signs, especially when you learn your body and you basically know your body and signs that it gives you, then you have to make adjustments. I'm menopausal, I'm older, so I can't do what I used to do in my 30s, and I'm okay with that because I'm still living and I'm healthy. I'm healthy, so being healthy matters over trying to stay so young. I want to be healthy and enjoy the journey of being healthy. So that takes work on my part, but I know I got to do what I'm supposed to do, which is drinking water, making sure I'm getting my vitamins, supplements, and all that, because as you get older, you lose things like, you know, through menopause and your, what do you call it, the hormones and all that.
Mm-hmm.
You lose a lot of stuff, but you can replace it and adjust through treatments that's holistic, that can prevent you from being on medicine unnecessarily, from inflammation and other things that comes from stress. Stress is a silent killer, and it works. It works in a way that's extremely negative. It's nothing positive about living a stressful life. So once again, I highly recommend, if you're in the Florence area, pop in like I do once a month. It's so concentrated, the treatment is once a month. Pop in and treat yourself if you're in the Florence, Kentucky area. But if you're in other locations, then look like I did, Google on social media, find a location and become holistically healthy.
Yeah.
It's worth it. It is so worth it. So do we want to let Desmond have a close? We have 3 minutes before we go off the air.
Yeah.
Who does the close?
Yeah.
Let Desmond Desmond want to come out and close? Come on. Give us a close.
Yeah, our smart pharmacist,
Yes.
who I go to for everything.
So, Desmond, explain why, especially the boosting immunity is so important now, because flu season is coming up. Yeah. So, yeah.
The immunity in many of the products we have antioxidants in them. You may hear that word antioxidants a lot. People wonder, what does that even mean? Antioxidants basically cleanse the body of what we call free radicals. So when you get sick or stressed or age, your body gets these free radicals that are floating around. I'm simplifying this, but they float around the body and you just don't feel good. Mm-hmm. And so antioxidants like vitamin C, like glutathione in particular, those two are very strong, what they call master antioxidants. And they help you kind of clean out and neutralize and level out your antioxidant, your free radicals, so that you feel better. And so we really recommend that, because in that immunity comes zinc, all the B's, so B12, B6, B complex, and our B complex has pyridoxine, riboflavin, nicotinamide, dexpanthenol, all the B's, so you get a nice vitamin boost, as well as another dose of glutathione, or another antioxidant in glutathione. So the immunity is big for feeling junky, in the middle of feeling junky, or even after you're feeling junky. It's a great way to kind of turn the corner. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Until next time with Prime IV, hydration, wellness. Have a great week. Super fun.
Did they tell you that?
Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via
Ken Jennings. All of us here at Jeopardy want to thank you for your service to our nation. We truly honor and appreciate you, and What's more, we're looking for contestants like you to play on our show. So head to Jeopardy.com now and take the Anytime test, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon right here on the Alex Trebek stage.
Hi, everybody. I'm Steph Collada, and I am a retired Army Reserve veteran. I am a founder, creator of Veteran Legislative Voice. I am also a AHG correspondent for America's Heroes Group, which is so amazing. And I'm here to talk about and pretty much have this small little time for September 11th, which is a big day for everybody, especially our veterans out there. For those that don't know, when I joined, it was in 2003. And so a few years after 9/11, I was a sophomore in high school for 9/11. And I was sitting in my health class eating brown sugar Pop-Tarts, waiting for our class to start going and everything. So everybody knows where they were at. And that's how it was for me. And for a lot of people, it was a very rough day. My most significant relation to that day is actually the next day, because the next day was when I would wear my junior ROTC uniform. Yes, I was in the Army JROTC for my high school, and it was on Wednesdays. That's how I know that 9/11 was on a Tuesday, and we would wear our uniforms. And when I walked into my first class, which was a English class, our teacher started crying. She saw me and my friend Jason both in our uniforms. And that teacher was born in the 50s. She was a boomer, but she was, born during Korean War, and she saw the start and her friends going to the Vietnam War, and she volunteered to help with anything she could stateside. And she lived through the Cold War. She lived through the Gulf War, seeing many of her students, because she was a 40-year teacher by that time, and had pretty much seen her students go off to war and sometimes not come back. And knowing how 9/11 happened, it was our generation's Pearl Harbor. And with her being born years after World War II, that was still something very much part of her life, is knowing about Pearl Harbor, because her family, her parents had lived through that. So having that moment in your brain, especially while you serve, is something you carry forever. And as a veteran, that's something that does unite a lot of us. When we go forward with different things that's going on in the next couple of months for this election, because I have to tie it in with politics, because I am a political commentator, and we'll talk about a lot of different things that has to do with politics, most normally legislative work, because a lot of people, that is my thing, and a lot of people are a little bit unknown on how legislative work does happen. And it's usually what I really love to talk about to help with a lot of people understand. And of course, upcoming is the presidential election. To me, one of the most important things that are coming up, not only is the presidential election, but it's also the election for our House representatives, and also for governors, for our senators, our state legislature. There's also a lot of city and county being involved. And of course, one of my cats had to come on as well. Yes, I am a cat lady. I am unapologetically a cat lady. So There we go. And so I really want to talk a little bit about understanding the elections that are coming up. We have had the presidential debate, but I do want to talk about everybody else that is going forward with their elections, because there's going to be a lot of really close elections going on right now. If you haven't been read in on or heard about it yet, there's a lot of polls that have been coming out, and there's a lot of people that are in a dead heat right now. Texas is one to watch. Ted Cruz is going against House Representative Colin Allred. He is also a former NFL player. They're in a very big dead heat. And so it's really important to get read in on that and to understand that's everything that's going on. And please research on who you want to vote for, because a few things about Ted Cruz may upset you. There's a few things that Colin Allred you might find that might upset you. So please do your research and check in with that. I do want to add that all of the claims that the immigrants are eating cats in Springfield, Ohio, cats and dogs, is completely false. And the city supervisor had actually tried to do an investigation, try to find out, and then said it's not actually happening. And Senator Ted Cruz was one of the people that had tried to spread that awful false rumor to try to cause more scare against our immigrants, which, you know what, we need our immigrants. We need people to come into this country to pretty much fill the jobs that we need. There's many cities in many states, especially in the Midwest and north of the border states, that actually take on a lot of immigrants for those jobs that our locals, our citizens don't actually take. You know, working in a chicken factory, chicken butchery factory, processing plant, and things in places like that where immigrants would love to go and get paid a decent wage so they can actually take care of their families, and their families can have decent educations and have relatively safe lives compared to the countries that they actually used to live in. And this country was built on immigrants, and that's why immigrants are so important. Many of our founding fathers, including Alexander Hamilton, was an immigrant. I mean, he was born in the Virgin Islands, which then was not owned by the United States whatsoever. It was not a British colony. Well, Britain did have it, but it wasn't, connected, and it wasn't part of the colonies that became independent at the time. So he was technically an immigrant. So there's other things that we do need to watch. Carrie Lake is also running for senator again, and we need to make sure that everybody understands everything that she may have spread of all the lies, especially about the 2020 election. She's going against Ruben Gallegos, who is also another amazing House representative that has done many things for our veterans, who's a veteran himself. And so it's really important to learn who to vote for and who should be the best person to help our constituents and help our people. Another election that's really important that is coming up is also for the Florida election. And it will be Rick Scott against Debbie Powell. And that would be an important one to watch, because right now they're pretty close. They're within the margin of error. So we're watching for that one. And that one's an important one as well, because many analysts have actually said that they do not include Florida as a battleground state. But right now, polls have former President Trump 2 points behind President Harris. So it is very close and could easily cause Florida to flip. So it technically could be a sleeper battleground state. So that is one to watch. That is mostly, for my estimation, is because there are a few things on the ballot that is actually more of a Democrat policy that's being included on the ballot, and that includes the recreational marijuana, which is heavily supported by many veterans who actually do use medical marijuana and want to be able to have much easier access to, especially it's a lot cheaper for recreational marijuana than it is for medical marijuana, because medical marijuana, you have to pay for the licensing and the exams. And then you got to pay for the medical marijuana prescriptions, which is actually much more expensive than the recreational marijuana. So it could actually help many people for that. It also can increase tourism and help pay for the schools for Florida. There's another one for reproductive rights, which will protect the access to an abortion up to right just before viability, which is something that Florida used to have years ago, is that it was up to 21, 22 weeks, I believe, which is pretty close because many premature babies are born at that time and could be saved if they are within the parameters that can make it much easier for them to live and also be accessible for the care that they have. So there's a lot of things that's in there that's Democratic policies and within their playbook. And often when you go to vote, many voters actually stick with one political party and their policies, and they don't often split. A split ballot is if, for instance, you vote for former President Trump, which is totally fine. If you believe that's right, that's cool. But then if you vote for either the recreational marijuana or for the reproductive rights measure on the ballot, that's technically called a split ballot. And that's actually very rare. Often they go down the row and go through with one party and one policy measures through the ballot. It happens because Kansas was like that when they voted to protect reproductive health care as well. So it can happen. It might happen in Florida. There are more registered Republicans within Florida, so it's possible. But for the abortion reproductive health care bill, over 30% of those that had signed for the petition, that the petition signatures were almost 1 million to get that on the ballot, over 30% were Republicans. So there could still be a split ballot. That's possible, but we will see when it comes up to Florida. There's other locations across the country that we do need to continue to watch. The incumbent Senator Jon Tester was also the chairman of the Senate Veterans Affairs Committee. He is running again, and he is actually 5 points behind his opponent. So we got to keep watch on that. Jon Tester has been a long-standing incumbent that's done a lot of things for our veterans. That he actually helped push through the PACT Act and make sure that over 1 million veterans were able to get their compensation for anything that's related to the burn pits. There's also 500,000 that became eligible for health care through the VA because of the measures underneath that act. So hopefully we could get him reelected, and that way he can do more really great things for our veterans. And so we will see. We will see what comes out of this. And so there's other things that should be coming through and that we could fight for. But I do want to encourage people to look up many of the things that are coming up with our veterans. You can look up on congress.gov and look up their voting measures. You can actually search their names, and it has their own little profile come up. It has the contacts for their links, for their own web pages. You can see the letters that they post out and things that they do. But you can also include and check where who has voted for what. You can see who voted for and voted against the PACT Act. You can see who voted for and against many other things. What is also coming up very soon is budgets. October 1st is the first day of the next fiscal year. And if there is not a passed budget, especially for the DoD, which is often the most heated and the most watched piece of legislation, the government will shut down, because they can't pay for anything. For anyone that doesn't know about, the history with government shutdowns, so for a nerd like myself, it's very interesting. We have to thank President Jimmy Carter and his Attorney General, because before President Jimmy Carter put his Attorney General on this to see about the legality of the budgets, Congress would basically pass the budgets when they can, and then when they don't meet it by October 1st, they just keep going like nothing's happening, and the bills and all the funding just goes wherever, and there's that much tracking, approval, or authorizations required. But Jimmy Carter's an attorney general. He actually was able to find and get it approved that when a funding measure is not passed by October 1st, everything stops. That way they don't go and spend money that hasn't been authorized. That's the theory. That's pretty much what happens. Majority of the time, the government does not pass the budget on time, especially in the full measure and full act. In the meantime, they typically pass what is called continued resolutions, CRs, and that is a temporary funding gap until they can really get approved on all of the nitty-gritty details of the big giant funding bill that happens, which often can include things like the Affordable Care Act, because that's pretty much where they had gotten the government shutdown happening before, back in 2013. So that's when people will mark their line and say, you know what, we don't approve this. We will not approve anything else until we get this ironed out and get this agreed upon. So there's certain things happening out there, and there are certain senators and certain House representatives that said that they will not approve any more continued resolutions because that measure does not work. And they believe that government shutdowns is the only way to really get what they want and what they think they need for the government, which can cause a lot of issues. When there is actually a government shutdown and not a continued resolution, the government actually loses money because they can't actually run anything that can make them money. For instance, national parks. National parks, you have to pay an entry fee to get in. Their park rangers will be working and they can write tickets, violations that they find, and things like that. That brings more money into the government. That can actually be a loss because when there is a government shutdown, those close. So we could be losing more money than we could be authorizing. It can cause much more hurt and much more issues on that. There are also typically a loss of employment because a lot of people cannot work during a government shutdown. There is a essential employee designator on these government employees. And certain people do have that. Majority of the TSA, for example, have that designator, but they typically do not get paid in the meantime until they pretty much get and pass the government shutdown. So they will work without pay. And that can cause a lot of issues because then they will not come in. They can call in sick. They can find other jobs because, you know what, they'd rather go where they can get paid and pay their bills because your landlord doesn't care there's a government shutdown. There's nothing you can really do about that. There's one thing that these federal employees can do, which if they're not working, if they're not essential employees like the TSA, they can file for unemployment. But we'll see how long that takes to get them to have that. If anybody has learned anything from the unemployment that happened from COVID pandemic. Hopefully, majority of our states have actually learned a lot of things, like Florida, who pretty much had a website that did not work for a month and a half. And so many people did not get their unemployment payments on time because they couldn't file the claims or file an extension or update anything. So we'll see if that happens and that works. Cross your fingers, everyone. But what other things can happen that's going on right now that really can frustrate me as a veteran and somebody that knows many people that do depend on VA disability payments to come in is right now the VA has an issue with their budget because they are going to run out before October 1st. So they're seeking a stopgap funding, and that has yet to be approved. Thankfully, the Senate and the House has returned from their recess during Labor Day, and we can actually get everything going so we can make sure that the funding gets there But I do want everybody to watch your representatives and your senators to make sure that they can, that they are doing what's best for their constituents, because they're going for an election next 2 months. And so please watch out, check how they're doing and what they're voting for. If you're not happy with what they're doing, you can always call them. Call their office. I do highly suggest their DC office and let them know what you're thinking, what you're feeling about what's going on. And they actually are supposed to register it on this big website and database. So whenever you send an email, you send a letter, or you call, it's actually filled out, and they can actually see what you say and what you do on that call. And it does get back to the representatives and the senators. They do read it. They do get an update. I do recommend calling, because emailing can take a few weeks, sometimes a few months. Sending a letter takes months. So please give them a call. It's best to write down, tell them who you are, where you live, who you're a constituent of them, and what you're concerned about. Short and sweet. If you want to be more specific on a certain issue, you can ask the person that answers the phone, which is often an intern, sometimes a student that is getting very low amount of money, $15 an hour, which is not enough for DC, by the way. So just FYI. So be nice to the person that answers the phone, because they're most likely not getting paid enough, and ask for a liaison for the subject that you're interested in and have an issue about. And then you can talk to that person. They can give you a call back whenever and when they are free, and then talk about the issue, and they're supposed to relay it to their boss. So it does get to them. It may not feel that way, but it does, because I've spoken to many of them. It does get to them, and they find out a lot of the nitty-gritty details that happens. So track your representatives, track your senators, make sure who they are. You can just Google them. Who are my representative? Who is my senator? And then get all of the info. You can check their social medias. Majority of them have Facebook, Instagram, and X. You can see what they're talking about. They often do post their interviews and things that they do on the normal broadcasts. They get a video from when they're on, and they actually do post it to their websites. And of course, one of my other cats will like to say a few things on the matter as well, because she does have a few issues, and she thinks she's a constituent. So we'll see how that one goes. And talk to them and let them know what's going on. I do recommend, if it has anything to do with your VA disability, if it has anything to do with the healthcare that you're actually receiving at a VA hospital and at a medical military hospital, definitely try patient advocacy first. Try the local area, and then if it's really big and it doesn't get resolved, call your constituent, call your representative or senator. Go to them first, and then speak to your legislative people. It's really important to track and understand what your legislature actually does for you, because many people do like to blame the president or the vice president or a secretary, of the cabinet. But actually, it's might be in the realm of the representative or senator, especially if it has to do with taxes or with money and funding and laws, just laws in general, because that's what Congress does, is to pass laws. Congress passes, they actually pass the funding. They're the ones that approve the judges. They do approve the generals of the military. They also do approve the Supreme Court justices. They approve the judges for the federal court. So those type of things are very important for you to track and make sure that they're doing what you believe is important to you and what's important in your life. Thank you, Glenda. Yes, cat moms do matter. We have the same vote as everyone else, even if you have kids, which I don't blame. I wish I could have kids. I just happen not to have kids. But a few more statistics about women veterans, in case if you guys are interested. They pretty much 28 to 35% of women veterans, depending on the survey that you look at, actually are single and childless. The rest are often single parents. Out of all veterans, women veterans are more likely to be single parents. And that's one of the reasons that they often have obstacles in receiving their veteran healthcare with the VA because of the lack of childcare. It's also a very scary place to bring children with you if you are a middle-aged or, youngish veteran and you're surrounded by very old veterans that have particular conditions. And so it can cause a lot of issues in that. So a lot of women veterans tend not to go. Women veterans often do not see themselves as veterans. That is very common as well. I'd like to at least point that out because there are studies out there that believe that there are more veterans that are dying every day by suicide because they do not identify as veterans. How do people find out that a person is a veteran? Typically, it's usually their tattoos. If you see here, you will not see military tattoos. So that is most likely one case that people do check if they're veterans, if they find them deceased. They will also look for memorabilia. Women veterans often don't see themselves as veterans. I know many veterans that got rid of their uniforms and anything else that has to do with the military because they were very much repulsed with how they were treated. So they get rid of everything. And since women veterans don't see themselves as veterans, they often don't go to the VA, so they don't get a veteran's ID card. That is the next thing that is checked when people check their place or their identity and other things. So if they don't know they're veterans, they don't know how to report them as veterans when the statistics really matter. So I really encourage everybody to try to get checked, do your research, get your health care because you deserve it. That is the reason why you served. There's a reason, you pay your taxes. The money is there. Hopefully the money will be there when they've approved the funding, but it's supposed to be there based on the amount of veterans that we have per our census. So please get your care because the money is there. Thank you very much, everybody. And I hope you guys have a great night. And I hope everybody have a good day on September 11th. Thank you. Bye.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally. Market, advertise, and sponsor your business with Vietnam veteran Cliff Kelly and America's Heroes Group, where information and resources are intentionally disseminated via radio, print, and social media. Call our office for more details at 312-803-2618. Market, welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to America's Heroes Group. I am Dr. Deandra Poe, more affectionately known as Dr. D, and this is your portion of me talking to you about Glass Soldier. And if you listen to my show, the first show with me introducing myself, thank you for listening. Thank you for viewing. If this is your first introduction to me, let me tell you briefly who I am and what Glass Soldier is. I am an Army veteran and survivor of military sexual trauma. I was medically retired in 2016 from the Army, and from there started my journey and on this advocacy space of advocating for military service members around sexual violence, domestic violence, and really just all the nuances that come with having served and navigating that space. My nonprofit is centered around helping those in and out of uniform. And so here we are in the month of September, and I want to highlight Suicide Awareness Month. So in the background, I don't know if anyone's going to be able to hear it or not, because this is real life, right? I live on a military base, and so Reveille or Retreat is playing right now in the background. So as the day comes down to an end, and we start the month of September off, as I said, I want to focus on Suicide Awareness Month. September brings about a lot of awareness, and we have been doing a really good job talking about suicide, and it is a very uncomfortable subject to talk about. In the Army, they have what they call ACE training, ACE-SI training, which stands for Ask, Care, Escort, Suicide Intervention, right? And we're calling it intervention because we really need people to have the conversation. And so my goal with you for the next 20 minutes or so is to kind of paint a picture for you about my own personal journey with suicide, ideations, and attempts. So before I begin, I do want to offer a trigger warning, and I know that if you've paid attention to social media, normally trigger warnings come prior to the conversation. I am going to be talking about suicide. I'm going to be giving statistics about it, and even describing my own journey. So I will say, for those of you who may or have previously been triggered by conversations like this is your opportunity to pause, maybe come back when you feel ready, or with someone that you care about who can be there for you. And for those of you that continue on this journey with me, please take an opportunity to take care for yourself after this episode and reach out and talk to someone. With that being said, the first time that I attempted to take my life, I was a teenager. I am what some people in this advocacy space would call a 3-time survivor. I am a survivor of childhood sexual abuse, of domestic violence, and military sexual trauma. When I was younger, growing up in the 80s, there were 0 conversations about suicide. About just as much as there were 0 conversations about mental health. And if someone struggled with feeling sad, or the sadness that took over their lives, it was brushed off, or we prayed our way through it. As I was trying to navigate now a couple of years of having been sexually abused, I attempted to take my life with Tylenol. It was the only thing that was available to me. And in my very young, and when I say teenage, I mean preteen mind, I thought for sure I would die if I just took half a bottle of Tylenol. What I wound up with was an incredibly bad stomach ache, and having to confess to my father, who was home at the time, what I had done. My father took me to the hospital, and they took me back into a room. I remember them giving me an IV, and my dad was in the room with me as they were trying to find my vein. And I think this was the first time that I had ever gotten an IV. So I didn't know what to expect. And so the guy looks at me and he says, "Think of a song to sing." So I looked at my dad And at the time, the only thing that I could think of was Jingle Bells. So I started singing Jingle Bells. And I say that so that you could understand where I was as a child. That the only song that could come to my mind wasn't what was popular on the radio, it was Jingle Bells. And as I'm singing this song and this man is puncturing my arm to put an IV in me, my father made this like awkward smile towards me because of the song that I chose to sing. And I don't know in that moment what my father was thinking, but I was just grateful that he looked at me. And so over the next couple hours, I was being checked for all of my organs. And I can tell you right now, I don't remember what they were checking for. As an adult, we tend to fill in the gaps of missing information, especially when it relates to trauma. So as an adult, when someone takes too much Tylenol, we know what Tylenol does now. I could say that they were probably checking to make sure that my liver was okay. Or, did they need to pump my stomach? They did not at that time. And so spending a few hours there, I don't remember where my mother was or why she wasn't the one there with me. The doctors never asked me why. My father never asked me why. But I remember thinking to myself, if you just ask me, I'll tell you. Because I didn't have the language to understand what has been happening to me and what was happening to me. And neither did my parents. I'm grateful that my father is alive today and he's 92. Amazing man. And I have a daddy's dad, right? I never blame my parents for not understanding, having the tools or the resources, right? In the grand scheme of things, we know what wrong is. And in that moment, I was looking for my father to give me a way out, to just open the door so I can tell him so that it could stop. But he didn't, and neither did the doctors. And so I found myself trying to figure out a different way to cope with what would continue to happen for a few more years. Fast forward, I am a young wife of a soldier. My first marriage was riddled with domestic violence. And we'll get into that later, right? Of how statistically domestic violence shows up. I know a lot of people in my life are like, you had two loving parents who I never saw be violent toward each other. How did I end up in and staying in a marriage for almost 10 years with someone who would abuse me over and over again? We'll talk about that next month in October for domestic violence awareness. So you'll have to come back. But I found myself trying to navigate being a young wife and mother while also hiding this abuse from my parents. And I learned to do that because of what happened to me as a child. I didn't want to tell my parents, and maybe in some way, I didn't think that they would be able to do something or they wanted to know themselves. Again, I say that my father is 92, born in 1932. My father came from a poor family of 12. And he himself has seen a lot. My mother also, bless her heart, my mother transitioned in 2021, I'm sorry, at the age of 80. Also someone who has seen a lot. So when I think about my ability to come forward and ask for help, I think about the people that were in my life, that's still in my life. I think about the language, the resources, the tools, the generational hurt, the generational pain that they endured. I think about what my parents has seen, especially my father, as a Black man who is a veteran as well, who went to war, who has seen people die, who has had to carry a lot of trauma, and not until recently, and I mean 2020, 21st century, even thought of therapy. To have to go through that as a 17-year-old young man off to Korea, asked to do some very adult things, come back to this country, have to fight through racism and Jim Crow and raising a family through a lot of things. There was just no way, and maybe in some way I knew that my parents didn't have the tools to help me. Or maybe they did, and my strength lied in their resiliency. And maybe that's just a testament of who I am today. I don't know. I humbly submit to you that I often don't know how I have come as far as I can, other than my faith being my primary reason. But I didn't tell them about the abuse. And then one day, I just didn't think there was any way out of the abuse. And I found myself at what is now called Fort Liberty, previously Fort Bragg, as a new spouse, no help, had no idea what the FRG was, which stands for Family Readiness Group. There was no 988, which I'll give you guys later. I was unaware of a hotline, therapy, or even his command to reach out and say, are you aware of what your soldier is doing at home? And so while my children, 2 younger ones, were at daycare, I attempted to hang myself in our bedroom. We had a canopy bed at the time, made out of metal. Pretty sure we got it from the PX, the exchange store. For our listeners who are not military, the PX is just a store, post-exchange. Service members are allowed to shop at. I remember it was cream colored. It was a full-size bed. And I remember I had decorated it with white sheer curtains around it. And so I took my rope belt and tied it at the top of the canopy bed. And wrapped it around my neck. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to stand here on the bed and go over to the side. I'm 4'11", so I'm not very tall. And I thought this out, that he'll go pick up the children and he'll come home
The bedroom door will be shut, and he'll come in, he'll find me, and he'll feel horrible. My failed attempt was that my robe belt did not stay tied. And I sat there on the floor. And for some reason, I didn't want to try again. I think after feeling the pressure of the rope around my neck and it slipping, I thought that perhaps this is not my time to go. But what I did do was I got up enough courage to call my mom and tell her that I wanted to leave. And I did multiple times. I did go back because this was at the very beginning of my marriage. I went back a few times, and each time the abuse got worse. But still, in all, I never told my mother or my sister who drove down from my home state and came to pick me and the children up. I just told them that I couldn't take it anymore. I think my mother knew for sure, but she never asked. She never asked. And so those were the only 2 times in my life where I attempted to take my life. It would not be the last time that I had suicidal thoughts, ideations, or a plan. After I decided to yield to mentorship and go into the Army in 2000, started around 2008, toward the end of my marriage, I had a mentor who, let me back up for a second. I started involving myself in the FRG. I don't know what sparked it, but for some reason, after my time in Germany, being over there and the abuse getting worse, I found my niche in advocacy. The bug had bit me and blossomed into what I felt like. At least my dad always told me that I was a servant leader. And so after going from Germany, where it was really bad, to Arizona with my still abusive spouse, my mentor encouraged me to go into the Army. Again, not sure what he saw in me, but he saw something in me and to affect change. And I know the people out there like, what in the world? The Department of Defense is a machine. Why would you think that you could go in there and affect change? Because hope is eternal to me. And as long as there's hope, there's a possibility, no matter what. So I went in at 31 years old, doe-eyed like I was 18, ready to be a lawyer. Ready to be a lawyer. That is not what I did in the Army. Uncle Sam said, we're going to branch you into logistics. You're going to manage beans and bullets and people. Well, that worked for a little while. And when I say a little while, first duty assignment, less than 90 days after arriving at my first duty assignment, I was assaulted in my home while my children slept nearby. So, a new set of trauma, a new survival instinct, a new test to my resiliency. That, again, is a whole nother episode. And we'll get back to that and all those details in another show. You are literally going to have to tune in every single month, or you're going to have to follow me on my social media to hear more. Fast forward to 2016. I was about to take on the title of Forever Soldier. And it was Thanksgiving week. I said, I'm going to kill her, and then I'm going to kill myself. That was not a good idea. I was sent to the emergency room where they restrained me. Things escalated, to say the least. They brought my command in, which made it worse. My husband, who could not find the words to help me. But what did happen, and I'm going to try to get through this without choking up because I feel the lump in my throat immediately, is a social worker came in and sat with me, and I told her my whole story. Not everything. We didn't go back to childhood or previous marriage. I told her everything that happened to me over the last 6 years while I was in uniform. And that woman said to me, listen, it's Thanksgiving week. I could send you upstairs to the 5th floor where you'll probably remain over the holiday. The lump is there. Or I could give you another opportunity because I don't believe that your story ends here. She gave me an opportunity, and I took it. Boy, did I take it. It took me a few days, a few weeks, as a matter of fact. And in December of that year in 2016, I enrolled in the social work program at the University of Texas in Arlington. And I said, I'm going to be a social worker because I'm going to do that. That woman saved my life simply because she asked. She asked and she listened. So I'm going to give you guys some glaring statistics because I want you to understand why it's so important for you to ask the question. Women veterans are twice as likely, right now, twice as likely to commit suicide against their male counterparts. That's what the DoD is reporting. Twice as likely to die by suicide. Forgive me for saying commit. And in 2021, 350 women died by suicide. The suicide rate among our women veterans has since skyrocketed. And is moving at an alarming rate past our male counterparts. And I want you to take that in consideration that the military is still very male dominant. So here's my call to action to this audience. when you think about women veterans. Ask them. Ask them, do they have a plan? Ask them what happened. Ask them, are they thinking about killing themselves? It will not make them want to complete suicide. It will not make them want to die by suicide. It is a hard conversation, and it is not for everyone. I will say, not a lot of people are going to want to ask, because if they say yes, then you have to be prepared. So I am encouraging listeners, if you have not yet, if you want to know how to be trained in mental health first aid, the Ask Care Escort, ask them, care about what's going on, and then get them to the services they need. I mentioned 988 earlier. 988 is a national hotline. Anyone can call. Veterans can press 1. You can even text now. You're having a conversation with someone that you love and you don't know what to do. You can text the 988 number. You can go online and talk to someone. Military One Source. For those that are still in and maybe you don't feel comfortable talking to someone in your chain of command. The last number I want to give you is the National Center for PTSD. And that's 1-800-273-8255. There are resources and there are people out there like myself and many, many others who want to know how to care for you, how they can help you. You are important. Your story is not finished. And you are loved and you are cared about. Your service mattered. You matter. I thank you all for listening today. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Time is a finite resource, one that I cannot give back to you. So when you spend it on me, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you. I look forward to seeing you guys next month.
Welcome to AHG Connects, where voices, information, and resources are empowered intentionally.
What camera are we looking at? Right in front of us? You gonna look at the screen or right here? Huh? That was our music. It's 5:30, 5:31. Welcome to Stage Black. I'm Latia Suttle, one of your hosts, retired Chief Warrant Officer. On today's show, we're going to give a little information about the National Association of Black Military Women's National Convention, 23rd Biannual Convention in Chicago. I have here with me my co-host.
Hello, everyone. I am Daphne D. Wright, a United States veteran and former cryptologist. I'm the co-host of the new show Stage Black. Always been here, not going anywhere. I'm excited to have two amazing women veterans on our September show. We're highlighting their lives and their stories. Today, we hold in remembrance all of the lives lost on 9/11 and celebrate those that survived. Our first guest is one of those survivors. Please welcome United States Army veteran Janice Jackson to the Stage Black show. Janice was born in Darlington, South Carolina. She's the oldest of 5 siblings, 4 girls and 1 boy. She's the only one of her siblings that decided to move from the state of South Carolina. Janice joined the Army in 1996 and served 7 years as an automated logistics specialist. She was stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and Fort Belvedere, Virginia. Janice was in the Pentagon attack on 9/11 and was honorably discharged from the military shortly after that. She takes pride and joy in being a mother of 2 daughters and a grandmother to 1 little girl. Her oldest daughter followed in her footsteps and joined the Army. Janice started her educational journey early, receiving a business clerical certification in 1998. She went on to receive a bachelor's degree from Strayer University in computer networking, a master's degree in engineering management and computer forensics from George Washington University, and she's a proud member of Kappa Epsilon Psi Military Sorority Incorporated. She currently works as a scrub master and IT specialist at the United States Patent and Trade Office. She enjoys helping and meeting new people, listening to motivation speeches, traveling the world, watching scary and action-packed movies, but most of all, she enjoys spending time with her family and friends. Her forte is helping people and being a team player at all times. Her ultimate goal and dream is to one day open a facility as a mental health advisor to help women who are having difficulties in life. Her motto, be yourself. We're honored to have you on the Stage Black show today. Welcome, Janice Jackson.
Welcome.
Ms. Jackson?
Unmute your mic. Janice, unmute your mic.
Just give us one moment. We're having a brief technical challenge.
Yes.
Okay, I can hear you guys now.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
We're honored to have you on the Stage Black show today. How are you?
I'm doing well, as expected, on this anniversary. I just try to live in the moment, and take one day at a time, as life is not promised to anyone. I look at things as I was given a second chance to live my life and to be an inspiration to others and inspire ones that may are going through things, that to let them know that what they're going through might not be as worse as they think, and to inspire younger generations as well as older generations, and to sort of be that guide and that shoulder to lean on, just for any little thing. I'm a caregiver. I realized that at an early age when I was a teenager, actually. My aunt was the first to tell me about that. God bless the dead. But it was after the 9/11 that things sort of came to the forefront, and I started seeing things and realizing that things that I used to think before, I would say, okay, I'm going to go to college, or I'm going to go do this, I'm going to do that. But it was more just a verbals, me saying it verbally. So it was not really happening. It wasn't until that tragic day, the 9/11 happened, that it sort of opened my eyes. It sort of pulled the wool from my eyes. It's like I was able to see. It's like I was sort of blinded before, but then it's like I was able to see. And then I took a different approach about things. And that is that I realized that life is not promised to us. We only have one life, and we want to live that to the fullest. And so instead of saying what I was going to do, I started putting it into action. So, you know that saying, action speaks louder than words. So instead of me saying what I was going to do, I just put it into action. I may have said it in my head, but ultimately I put it in action. So that's where my degrees came from. So I realized that I like working with people, and I also like gadgets. So that's where the degrees and stuff came from. And through that approach, that's where it brought me to where I'm at right now. Ultimately, I'm still working with people because I think that is part of my inspiration, and my forte is to work with people and to do the things that I desire. And that all that came into effect. It was after 9/11 that I realized that. And I am blessed. And my mom say I'm her miracle child. And I'm just blessed to be here by the grace of God. Because if it wasn't for him, I would not be here.
So on the lines of you, seeing yourself as being a caretaker since you were at a very young age, around high school, you received the Civil Service Award for your heroic acts on 9/11. Can you tell us about the moment when you decided to return back into the rumble and save another person's life?
So let me just be clear. So I never actually left the actual rumble, where all that stuff actually happened. I was still stuck inside. There's no windows there. It's only one door to enter or exit. There is no windows. And I was in 1D520. So upon that day when all of this chaos was happening.
And this is in the Pentagon, correct?
This is in the Pentagon, correct. When all this happened, I heard a voice that was calling out to me. They gave me this nickname, JJ, because people sort of joked my name because it's Janice Jackson. And if you say it really fast, it sounds like Janet Jackson. So,
yes,
so they came up with the nickname of JJ. And so I heard this voice, and it was like, JJ, help me. So it's sort of like the instinct sort of kicked in. The military instincts kicked in, even though at this time I had already had these burns from the fire. The second and third degree burns, to my hair, my face, as well as my hand. And it was like it was an angel there. As I proceeded to follow the voice, it was like a little light, and the light was guiding me. So as I was proceeding, I followed the light, and it's like all of a sudden, it's like the winds blew right inside, and I was able to see her, and she was covered in debris from her waist down. Keep in mind that I already had these burns on my hand, but like with anything, blisters, they don't actually populate right away. So it takes them a few minutes to expand. So I was able to pull her out of that, from the debris, that she was covered in. And that light, you remember that light that I told you that I was following? that light turned into a hole in the wall. So if you look at the photos that they have online, you will see that there's a part of the Pentagon that sort of leans over, and there's like a hole in there. You know, that is the thing that we came out of. But the thing is, we crawled out because the hole was sort of small. So we crawled out of there. There was no one coming in. There were people standing on the outside, but there was no one coming in. So we were our only hope. I was her only hope. And by the grace of God, he sent those angels in there to help me, to help her, to get out of there. So we crawled through that opening, and then we saw the light. That was nothing but the grace of God.
Wow. You are truly a hero. Yeah, that's incredible. I'm reading your bio. I know you have a motto, a personal motto, be yourself. Can you talk to us about that and how that, has influenced you through your day to day, and how it influenced your dream to one day open a facility as a mental health advisor? I have no doubt that you would do it, but can you just tell us how you use that model to sort of thrust you forward?
Well, I think that before the 9/11, I was more of a shy type person. So I never really talked a lot. So it was things I thought I would always keep them to myself. So I was sort of an introvert, so I sort of stayed to myself. It wasn't until after the 9/11 happened that it's like it opened up doors for me, and it's like, so to be yourself, meaning speak out. If you think something that's important, it's going to help someone, or if it's going to help a company or help someone who's going through something tragic. So what I mean by be yourself, just speak whatever's on your mind. Don't sugarcoat anything. Just say what it is. Sometimes it might not come out as good, to the other person. It might be hurtful, but the thing is, in the end, it will actually help that person, because you're speaking it from your heart, and it's no ill intent, but it's all about just being yourself. If you have to sugarcoat something or sit back and say, okay, well, no, I don't want to say this because this might be this way, you're not being yourself. You're letting someone control how you speak and how you react and how you respond. So it's all about being yourself. Once you become yourself, you feel more at peace with yourself. There's not stress. It's not stressful. You're more relaxed, and you're comfortable inside your own skin, and you're able to accomplish many things once you overcome that hurdle. So with that being said, it has allowed me to continue my journey to spread the word about what I've gone through and to help others. And by doing so, I realized that this is sort of something that God wants me to do, and that is to help others. And that's where the caretaker comes in. Help others, meaning that I believe that now I have what they call an intuition. So I can feel when something's not right with people. And it just comes to my heart to say, how's your day? And sort of spark up a conversation just to see what it is that I can do to help them or to make their day better. And so,
oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. We
no,
appreciate your positive outlook on life, and we appreciate you coming to Stage Black to really inspire us and tell us, people want to hear their stories of the survivors, because we hear a lot about the people we lost and less about the people who are still here, that we want to also celebrate. We also have another guest on our show.
Yes, our next guest is a retired U.S. Army Lieutenant Colonel Authryn Jones. She served 27 years in the military. She also did 2 tours in Iraq in support of Iraqi freedom. She also earned 3 Bronze Stars and was awarded a Combat Action Badge for engaging in the enemy and taking on enemy fire. Authryn Jones is a noteworthy retired federal agent. And during her 22-year tenure as a criminal investigator, she was awarded, several awards for doing an outstanding job. We'd like to welcome you here to today's show, ma'am. How you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you and bless you. It's wonderful to be here.
Yes, I wanted to ask you, as you were a federal agent or federal law enforcement agent. What field did you work in exactly while in the military, or were you a federal agent after you got out of the military?
Yes, it was ongoing. I was a federal agent 1811 with the United States Postal Inspection Service, where I served as an undercover agent. I served in pornography, child pornography. I served in undercover drug operations, mail fraud, bombs in the mail, etc. And when I was called up, my job supported me in that venture. So it was an ongoing multi career.
Mm-hmm.
Multi-agency career.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All righty. So you would never, because when I was in the U.S. Army as well, and I would always hear of the CID, and so you did not work with the CID while you were in the military.
No, we had what we call SID, but it's undercover investigations on employees in that branch. And so my civilian occupation involved being a federal agent. And my military position, I was under civil military operations.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so what did you do as civil operations?
Civil military operations comes in existence when there is a war or there is some type of hostility. And we are branches from all across a government. Because as you see, when governments are fighting or in battle, most things involving the government are destroyed. Infrastructure, their rule of law, their transportation, the schools, just anything that allows a society to function falls under military operations.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So you was telling me before too, like we had shown a picture of you and Barack Obama. Was that a surprise appearance there in Iraq?
Yes, it was. We always had dignitaries who traveled inside the war zone. And he was there. And because I was from Illinois and I was in charge of the military rule of law, working with the ambassadors and lawyers from all across the United States, they thought it would be quite efficient for me to be the person to have breakfast with him and discuss his options and his concerns, his strategic plan for serving as our President of the United States of America.
Wow.
So it was indeed a surprise and a pleasure.
Right. I know that had to be exciting.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So, and I also read in your bio where you continue to fight against terrorism. Like, what does that look like to you?
Well, we are Americans, and I tell you, going from America to other countries to see just what they have to endure, I am just so proud to be an American. And our values and our freedoms are not free. Just as I had the pleasure of listening in on Miss Jackson's beautiful experience and her outlook on life now, she is one of those people that, as a military person, we want to make sure that we fight terrorism away from our country and away from destroying us. Unfortunately, that didn't happen on 9/11.
Right. Right. And I know you do a lot of volunteer work in the community, something with Gold Star families and like adopting families. You know, some family members do unfortunately lose family members when they go out to fight for our country. You know, what type of work do you do with that, the Gold Star families?
Well, you know, the Gold Star family is a family whereby they have a member who serves our country, and as a result of their active duty service, they don't come home. And so Sergeant Simone A. Robinson, she's a fallen comrade in Afghanistan, and she left a 2-year-old daughter with her grandmother to be with her grandmother for maybe a year and a half. However, she never came back. She was hit by an IED, that's an improvised explosive device. And I have met personally with her battle buddies who carried her body off the battlefield while she was still alive. And they said that she sang, "This joy I have, the world didn't give it. The world can't take it away." I'll never forget that.
Mm.
And you know what? Now, Miss Jackson was a survivor 9/11.
Right.
Well, there was a person there by the name of Silla. He was a firefighter. He was off duty that day, but in the area. And so he went to duty to meet with his squad. When he got there, they were finishing up, but he said, "I'll stay." He took body after body, people after people. He led them out of that building. However, he never came back and his body was never found.
Mm.
His family were in a lot of pain, but through their pain, they established the Silla Towers to Tunnels Foundation. And what that does is they give homes to first responders
Mm.
and military people when their loved one doesn't come home. And this family, we've been with her since 2009. Every year we go to the cemetery with her family. We also help with the family with all of their needs in association and partnership with other organizations. Well, her grandmother called me one day and said, "I'm just so tired. I'm trying to find a safe place." Because whenever I would go visit her, I would visit 3 times. And within 9 months, she's in another apartment trying to find a safe place for her grandbaby, Nizia. And it was the pandemic, but I got on the telephone. I worked those phones. I called everybody I knew who I thought knew somebody who could help. As a result, that Gold Star family is in a mortgage-free home in Oak Forest, Illinois. They are thriving and doing well. They have a lot of trauma, but they're in a safe home.
That's amazing.
Yes, that is truly stellar. You know, your service extends far beyond what you did on the battlefield. You are still in the trenches, and we, and I say, you know, I'm a military veteran. Latia is a military veteran. We appreciate the work that you put forth for our veterans.
Well,
We really
thank you
appreciate
so much. And you know, just as Miss Jackson stated before, and I'm sorry, I was just so captivated by your presentation. Once you go through something, your healing is going out there and helping somebody else. I was hit one of my missions, and I talked with you about that one. I didn't talk with you about the others, but we had people injured, but thank God I didn't lose anyone. But some people are still lost because they're not that whole person. And so it's my responsibility. It's my calling, my purpose from God to help those. So that's what I do. My phone number is out there. People call me 24/7. If a woman is homeless and she's got children, she's out there. Our organization, National Women's Veterans United, where Rochelle Crump is the president, and we're celebrating our 20th year anniversary next year.
That's outstanding.
We go out and get those people, and
Mhm.
we provide them immediate care in homes, because you know what? The government and all of these other organizations, they are important and they help, but they are only open 9 to 5. They're off on the weekends. People who
Right.
are homeless in need are homeless and in need 24/7.
Right, ma'am. And also, we thank you so much for the work that you can continue to do with these organizations. There's another organization that has chapters all up throughout the country. They'll be having their national convention September 18th through the 22nd. It's with the National Association of Black Military Women.
I will be there.
Oh, that is
I
outstanding.
will be there with my sisters.
Okay. Will this be your first time attending?
Yes, it will be. I've made my schedule available. Now, if an emergency comes up, I will have to leave, because my veterans and my families in need are first and foremost. My family knows that.
All right. Well, we appreciate you attending the convention. So for those watching the show, if you want more information about the National Association of Black Military Women, you can go to their website, nabmw.org. And I think Daphne has some more information about Stage Black that she'll share.
I want to thank our guest, United States Army veteran Janice Jackson and retired Lieutenant Colonel Arthurine Jones, our show producers at American Hero Group, and our co-host and segment producer, Latia Suttle. I'm Dee Wright. We look forward to seeing you next month, October the 9th, and every second Wednesday on Stage Black. Always been here, not going anywhere.
Thanks for what you do, ladies.
Thank you. And we appreciate you guys so much.
Thank you.